Picture two forces meeting a stone. The first is fire. It is sudden and violent, and it scorches the surface black. And for a moment it feels like power, and then it burns out, and the stone remains unchanged. The second is water. It is soft. It seems to do nothing at all. But the water returns and returns, drop after drop, year after year, and in time it carves straight through the stone, and the fire never could. Wrath is the fire. It feels mighty in the moment, and it changes nothing, and it leaves only ash. Patience is the water. It looks like weakness, and it is the most relentless force there is. What it sets itself against, it outlasts. And almost nothing in this world can defeat a person who has truly learned to wait.
We must be careful about what patience is because we have confused it with surrender. Patience is not passivity. It is not lying down. It is not pretending that nothing is wrong. It is the opposite. It is a fierce strength held under control. It is wanting to strike and choosing deliberately not to, because you can see further than the moment. The wrathful man mistakes his temper for strength, but losing control is never strength. It is the precise moment your enemy, or your circumstance, takes the wheel. Patience is the refusal to hand over the wheel. It is keeping your hand steady and your eyes on the long road, while everything in you screams to swerve. That is not weakness. That is the hardest kind of power there is.
Patience has a counterfeit, and it is dangerous, because it looks almost identical from the outside. It is suppression. The anger swallowed, not mastered. Pushed down, not worked through. The man who never raises his voice, but seethes for years, and grows cold, and finds 100 quiet ways to punish. That is not patience. That is wrath wearing a calm face, and it is, in some ways, worse, because it never resolves. It only poisons. True patience is not the absence of anger. The anger is allowed to be there. It is felt, and named, and understood. But it is not permitted to drive. The patient man is not pretending to be calm. He has done the harder work of actually becoming calm, of letting the fire rise, and looking at it clearly, and choosing what to do with its heat.
Oh, your anger, like every strong feeling, is information if you will read it instead of obey it. Anger almost always points at something you value, that you feel has been threatened. Behind the rage is usually a hurt or a fear, or a wound that the anger is rushing to defend. So when the fire rises, before you act, ask what it is protecting. What did this touch? What am I afraid of? Underneath the fury, the wrathful man only ever feels the heat and lets it carry him. The patient man feels the same heat and reads it and learns from it. And so the very thing that destroys the wrathful man becomes, for him, a source of self-knowledge. The fire that burns one person down lights the other person's way.
There is an old story of a general who won a war by refusing to fight it. A great invader had come into his country, undefeated, brilliant, hungry for a battle. And every instinct and every angry voice at home demanded that he be met head-on, at once. But the patient general would not give the enemy the fight he wanted. He shadowed him. He waited. He wore him down with time and distance and small cuts, and refused, again and again, to be provoked into the reckless clash that would have ended everything. They mocked him for it. They called him a coward. And slowly, the undefeated invader, far from home, ran out of the one thing he could not replace: time. The patient general was remembered, in the end, as the man who saved his country, not by the strength of his arm, but by the strength of his restraint.
Oh, and there is a quieter story about a different kind of power. A teacher told his followers something that has scandalized people ever since. He said that when someone strikes you, you should turn the other cheek. We hear it as weakness. It is the opposite. The man who strikes back has been controlled. His enemy pulled a string, and he danced. The man who does not strike back has taken away the only thing the striker wanted, the fight. He stands there, unbroken, refusing to become what was done to him. And there is no answer to that. Cruelty needs you to return it, to be justified. Refuse, and you leave it swinging at the air, exposed, with nowhere to hide. The patient man does not lose the exchange. He ends it, on his own terms, and walks away still himself.
Epikheim. Now hear why patience is not just calm, but the deepest kind of power. Time is a weapon, and it belongs entirely to the patient. The wrathful man lives inside the single burning second. He cannot see past it, and so he sacrifices the future to it. The patient man plays a longer game, and in a long game, the furious always lose. They exhaust themselves. They make the rash move. They burn the bridge they will need to cross tomorrow. The patient man simply endures, and positions, and waits, and lets his hot-headed opponents defeat themselves, which, given enough time, they almost always do. Everything worth having, a skill, a fortune, a love, a reputation, is built slowly and is destroyed quickly, in a moment of heat. The patient build, the wrathful burn, and building always wins the long war.
This is how patience cures wrath. Wrath demands that the world be set right now, this instant, by force. And because the world is rarely set right on command, wrath lives in a state of constant, grinding rage. Patience trusts the longer arc. It can act when action is wise, and wait when waiting is wiser. And it is not tortured by the gap between how things are and how it wants them to be. The wrathful man is at war with reality, with the slowness of things, with the imperfection of people. The patient man has made his peace with the truth that good things take time and that some things cannot be rushed. And from that peace comes an endurance the furious can never match. The cure for the rage of now is the trust that later will come, and the strength to wait for it.
So begin where wrath is born, in the gap that the wrathful do not have. Between the spark and the fire, there is a moment. The patient man lives in that moment. When the anger flares, do nothing. Do not speak. Do not send the message. Do not make the call. Let one full breath pass, then another. Buy yourself the smallest delay, because anger is almost entirely a creature of speed. It needs you to act before you think, because it knows that thought is its enemy. Old wisdom says to count to 10. It sounds childish. It is profound. Those 10 seconds are the difference between the word that ends a friendship and the silence that saves it. Practice the pause on small irritations, so that it is there for you when the real fire comes.
Or, for the larger angers, there is a larger pause, and it has never been improved upon. Wait a day, sleep on it. Never send the furious letter the night you write it. Write it if you must, to get the poison out, and then do not send it. Read it again in the morning, when the fire has cooled, and you will almost always be grateful you waited. The wrathful self is certain, in the moment, that it sees clearly. It does not, Anger is a kind of drunkenness. It narrows the world to a single point and calls that point the truth. The patient man knows not to trust his own judgment while the fire is high. He has learned to distrust the certainty of his own rage, and to let time return him to himself before he acts. Almost nothing truly needs your answer tonight.
Would you still none mistake the easy version for the real one? It is no great virtue to be patient when nothing is testing you. Patience is forged precisely where it is hardest, in the long wait with no guarantee, in holding your tongue when you have the perfect cutting reply ready, in staying calm with the person built to provoke you, in enduring the slow, frustrating middle of something good when every nerve wants to force it or quit it. That is the threshold, and it costs you the sweet immediate release of just letting the fire out. But that release is a trap. It feels like power, and it leaves you weaker, and your situation worse. The patient man gives up the small satisfaction of the explosion and gains the large victory of the outcome.
Notice what the still water has that the fire never will: endurance. The wrathful man is spectacular and brief. He flares, and he is spent. The patient man is quiet and unending. He is still there, long after the fire has burned out. This is why, across every field, it is so often not the most brilliant who win, but the most durable. Not the fastest starter, but the one who is still standing when the others have flamed out. Patience is the virtue of the long haul, of the marriage that lasts, the craft that deepens, the trust that is slowly earned. It is the least dramatic of the virtues, and quietly the most powerful, because time is on its side, and time, in the end, beats everything. Be the water, outlast the stone.
This, like all of them, is built by practice, not by admiration. No one was ever made patient by agreeing that patience is wise. You become it the way the wrathful man became reactive, one held breath at a time, until it is who you are. Tomorrow, something will spark your anger. Let one breath pass before you respond. Just one, to start. Some larger fury will tempt you to act tonight. Sleep on it, and decide in the morning. Sit in the slow middle of something good, and refuse to force it or abandon it. Practice on the small irritations, so that the strength is there for the great ones. There is no shortcut, but the reward is enormous. You become the one force that the fire and the impatience and the chaos of the world cannot defeat.
You have learned to master time's heat, to wait without breaking. And mastering time leaves one last question, the one that holds all the others up. What will you do with the time you have so patiently kept? For a man can be kind and humble and generous and steady and measured and patient, and still, at the end, have built nothing, because he never began and never returned, and never did the daily, unglamorous work. The waiting is only worthy if it is waiting for the work. And so the last cure is the simplest, and in some ways the hardest of them all. It is to rise, tomorrow, and the day after that, and begin.